Hey, it's good to get back with some of the reading of Richard Wurmbrand's book, The Answer to the Atheist Handbook. And just to recap that this book, The Atheistic Handbook, was published in 1961 by Moscow's Academy of Science. And this book that I've been reading on Saturdays has been the Reverend Wurmbrand, who was imprisoned by the Russian Communist Party back in I think it was the 50s. Let me find out for sure here. And back in 48, and he was rearrested in 1959, and yeah, pretty radical. So got quite the testimony, but this is his rebuttal to the Atheistic Handbook, and it's good. It's always good to look at worldviews and how worldviews really change the way that we think. What we think, our worldview really dictates what we think about everything. And this chapter is his talk on "Is there a God?" And of course, he's going to bring up issues in the Atheistic Handbook, which was distributed back in 1961. So it says, "Until now I have followed in the present book the precept of Jesus. Quote, whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2, unquote. My opponents wanted to pursue a certain course of arguments, and I have walked along with them. I have discussed their arguments even when the issues were not all that important. But now I would rather concentrate on the principal question at issue between atheists and Christians. Is there a God to worship, to rely upon, to be protected by, to be comforted with, or not? According to the French atheist theoretician R. Garrity, and Roger Garrity was a French philosopher back in the 20th century, and he was an atheist, and then he converted to Islam back in 1982. He was a Holocaust denier, just touting that it was a myth, and very much into it looks like guys like Karl Marx and things like that. So according to him, it says, according to the French atheist Roger Garrity, totality and absoluteness is not God, but, quote, the name man, unquote. There is nothing superior to man. Christians believe in God and in his promises to assist them in this life and to provide life eternal. Garrity writes, quote, to us atheists nothing is promised and nobody awaits us, unquote. Sad words indeed. To atheists, not even the loyal friendship of their own comrades is promised. Garrity was rejected by his atheist friends. Nobody waited to extend him a helping hand or a friendly gesture when he was in distress. He found himself alone. A young composer was poor and had to live in a rented room. A friend encouraged him, quote, when you die, there will be an inscription on the wall of this house, unquote. The composer was enthusiastic. Quote, you really mean it? Surely, was his reply. There will be an inscription, room to rent. No more than this can Garrity await for after death. Man is God. The whole atheist humanist creed breathes this belief. Having in view this delusion, one of the Soviet underground poets, I. Gabai, was moved to write the following verses. I'm my own God, but what a weak, erratic God, irrational, insane, and feeble. May God forbid that one loves such a God, and be like him. May God protect you from it. A God? Perhaps. A vicious, wretched God. But if indeed I am the guileless face, May God help you to be a peaceful atheist. To be a God, from that may God protect you. A God I am, but powerless in the tumult, and by the logic of perverted borders, museums are now dwelling in the temples, and gods are living in the midst of milling crowds. Forgive me for my mania and grandeur, but there is no God's greatness in my fate, myself to punish and forgive myself my sins. Forgive my mania of grandeur, God's greatness to chastise. I would not wish to any of my neighbors. I do not dare to wish him such command. May God forbid that you should stoop to Godhead, to exculpate yourself, or to absolve yourself from sin. What I am, God. Only He is God. What an enormous pride, what sorrow. May God forbid that you should trust your conscience and live defying it. May God forbid. Is there a being superior to man? Is there a God? In the usual sense given to this word, the creator of heaven and earth, the one whom Jesus taught us to call our Father. In the Temple of Jerusalem, as well as in many Egyptian and Mithrist temples, there was a most holy place in which only the high priest was allowed to enter once a year in the framework of an impressive religious ceremony. In the time of Jesus, this most holy place was empty. The so-called Ark of the Covenant, a gilded case containing tables of stone with the commandments of God, had been carried away and hidden centuries before by Jeremiah at the time of the Babylonian captivity. When the temple was reconstructed after the release of the Jews from captivity, the sacred ark could not be found. There was absolutely nothing in the most holy place. This emptiness has a symbolic significance. The Kabbalah, an esoteric book of the Jews which contains their ancient religious traditions, calls God Ian, the non-existent. It might seem strange to find in a deeply religious book a name of God with which the atheists would agree, but the sense is clear for those who know God. God is not in the sense that He is not what we consider Him to be. His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. Feuerbach was right when he said that men have created gods according to their own image. But Feuerbach was not original. He said this in order to deprecate God. Luther, one of the profoundest religious thinkers of history, had said 3 centuries before, faith is the creator of God. Man thinks about the causes and purposes of things, about the mysteries of nature and life, and his mind gives birth to the notion of God. God is his son, the beloved child of his thought. But once he comes to this point, he immediately concludes that this God born in his mind is the creator of all things and also of his own person, that he has an objective existence outside his own consciousness, that man owns him everything. So from God, the Son, he arrives at the notion of God the Father. These two notions, we learn from the Bible, are united with each other in an ineffable, unspeakable love, the Holy Spirit. God created the man who has faith. Faith creates the notion, quote, God. Thus far we understand our notion of God. But the God who created us far surpasses our understanding. He is not what our reason can conceive. Theology has given many arguments that God exists. To this, adversaries of religion have brought counter-arguments. I will not argue. Woe to a God who needs someone to defend him. A God can reveal himself. You need bring no proof of the existence of the sun. How much less, then, for its creator? There are moments when the sun is veiled by clouds. Then those who wish to see it have to wait. If God wishes to hide himself so as to be discovered only by those who seek him zealously, I have to respect his will. God uses light to give life to every being, but both God and light are unseen. Who has ever seen light? In a tube completely empty of air, a ray of light remains invisible. What we call seeing light is seeing the objects, the air illuminated by light. Light as such is invisible. No one has to override the senses and reason in order to know God, though reason may point toward him. You observe purpose in nature. The seed sown in the earth extracts from its surroundings just as much nitrogen, air, and water as it needs in order to become a flower. You can see a finality in its growth. It has purpose to attain. The impregnated egg takes from the womb of the mother just the food it needs to become a baby. Again, the reaching toward a goal. But neither the seed nor the egg can pursue aims. These must come from a wise being who imposes upon them his creations. Furthermore, we see man attuned to his environment, or he could not have survived so many thousands of years. That is, in spite of man's abuses, we live in a reality which sometimes, with and sometimes without our effort, gives us what is necessary for our existence. We are born as babes, able to consume nothing but milk, but a short time before our birth, milk accumulates in our mother's breast. We are born with lungs, and we find air. We need water, and it is provided. After several months, we need the nutrients found in vegetables and meat, and the world contains these. We are susceptible to sickness, but we know that someone has prepared medicines for innumerable kinds of sickness from herbs or other plants. For every human need, there is a corresponding reality to supply that need. What arrogance or ignorance makes us suppose that for a very fundamental need, for the thirst of our soul after a God, a thirst which has created so many mythologies and religions, there should be no fulfilling reality? One autumn day, a crow spoke to a young swallow in its first year of life. The crow said to the swallow, "I see you are preparing for a long journey. Where are you flying?" The swallow answered, "It is growing colder and colder here. I might freeze. I'll fly toward a warmer country." The wise crow mocked, "But remember well your birth. You were born here only a couple of months ago. How do you know that there is a warmer country to shelter you while it is cold here?" The swallow answered, "The one who has put in my heart the desire for a warm climate cannot have cheated me. I believe him and depart." And the swallow found what it sought. That is how every faithful soul proceeds. The human soul becomes an icicle in a world without God. You remember Homunculus, the artificial man created in a tube in the second part of Faust? He always felt cold. You freeze when you think of yourself as only a complicated product of chemical reactions. We aspire toward a Father, source of warmth, love, light. As all fundamental human needs are fulfilled in reality, so also is this need of the soul. We can find God. We can know him. However, no field of knowledge can be investigated without proper tools. You cannot see stars through the microscope or microbes through the telescope. Men who cannot think rightly come to the conclusion that God does not exist because they cannot find him through the senses, which are functions of life in the realm of matter. Senses are not the right means to see God. As microbiology has its particular instrument and astronomy another, faith also possesses one by which it can see the Creator. Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Have such a heart, and you will see. The reader will surely understand that the word "to see" has many meanings. I see a material object because the photons reflected by it hit my eye. I see the righteousness of a cause by weighing arguments in my mind. I see the love of a person toward me by his behavior. I close my eyes and can evoke the image of someone dear. He is far away. No photons from him reach my eye. But I see. I can tell my dream, my daydream, my fancies. Half of our lives we see in this manner. How do we see God? Question. In our imagination are stored images, and we can pick up the image we need as if from an album. But it is not only images from the material world that we have in this safe. My existence does not start on the day of my birth, nor on the day of my conception. I have existed forever in the mind and plan of God. I have come to this earth for a short time as a pilgrim and foreigner. But we have to qualify the words to see and image in this connotation, because you see a reality for which there are no words in human language. When Marco Polo, the first European ever to be in China, returned and told his fellows that he had met yellow men with slanted eyes and with hair tressed in tails, he was called Marco Polo the Liar. What means did he have to prove his assertions? He could only say to men, "Go where I have been, face the dangers I have faced, bear with the fatigues through which I have passed, and you will know." I cannot convince a skeptic that viruses exist. He himself has to look in a microscope. Blessed are the pure in heart, because they will see God. The problem of knowing God is one of purity of character. The ultimate truth is the exclusive monopoly of the clean. Whenever somebody speaks to me about God or against, I ask him, quote, "How pure are you that you may be considered reliable?" Only those can know the subject who are whiter than snow, unquote. So that's his talk on Is There a God? And I kind of liked that late credo of Job, that poem in there. That was great, huh? If I'm my own God, he says, what a wreck, erratic God. And that's kind of the issue that he's getting at with this chapter, is more about the idea of if there is no God, then in humanism, secular humanism, then you become God. So nothing objective outside of us is going to regulate human beings. The only thing that can regulate human beings is a government that we put up, and that's what happens in our world. And then what we do is we become narcissistic as well, because all we have is ourselves to make. We're our own God, if you will. So each one does what is right in his own eye. And then the winner of who really is the winner of the majority morality maybe can win. But wouldn't it be great if we all had an objective, the same objective morality that was placed on us, that would regulate us, so that we wouldn't need a huge government to have to do that, that we would be regulating ourselves through that relationship with God. But this is usually rejected in a secular culture, and what he's getting at is all you have left is you know, and that's what the poem kind of gets at, right? I'm my own God, but what a wreck, erratic God, irrational, insane, and feeble. May God forbid that such a God, be like me, right? And that's right. So who's to say what is right and wrong? If it's just us, then we become, in a sense, like God, a God to other people. And what kind of God are you? And so that's kind of where he goes with some of that. So next week we will get into who is God, and that's going to be his talk. It'll be pretty cool. So I like putting these up on my YouTube page, and just have, if people want to know more about the founder of Voice of the Martyrs, and they're really for human rights in the world, they definitely want to check out the Voice of the Martyrs and Reverend Wurmbrand. And this guy was in prison for like 11, 12 years by the Communist Party simply because of his faith in Jesus. I love one of his quotes, by the way, in this book that says, how many places are people arrested just for being atheists? And then and then he says, but how many Christians have been arrested just for being Christians? And yeah, really interesting. Anyway, you guys could always pick up the book yourself, Richard Wurmbrand, The Answer to the Atheist Handbook, but I'll keep finishing it up before I get back to my blaze with Pascal time. So you guys take care. Bye-bye.